Quoting Major General Jacob, "Tactics may win battles, but it is strategy that wins wars." The Indian Army had begun preparations for that strategic battle. Lieutenant General Amir Abdul Khan Niazi, commander of the Pakistani Eastern Military High Command, followed a strategy focusing on defending East Pakistan at any cost and protecting territory. Niazi turned key towns and cities into fortified fortresses that were stocked with enough ammunition and supplies to sustain for months. Niazi thus planned to deny the Indian Army any major access. The Indian strategy planned for a lightning campaign which would be swift and decisive. The Indian objective was to bypass the towns using subsidiary trails. Had Niazi concentrated on defending the various river crossing sites and the Dhaka Triangle, the Indian Army would have found it impossible to capture Dhaka. By the end of May 1971, the Indian Army had drafted an outline plan based on the following parameters. The final objective was to be Dhaka, the center of gravity and the geopolitical and geostrategic heart of East Pakistan. Pakistani fortified positions and towns were to be bypassed and thrust lines selected accordingly. The Eastern Command also had to cater for defense against any Chinese intervention, contain insurgencies in the northeast, and in addition ensure the defense of Bhutan. The Indian Army had very small reliable intelligence of the Pakistani military order of battle and topography. The small-scale maps available of East Pakistan were over 50 years old. The Mukti Bahini was told to obtain up-to-date Pakistani maps, and they handed over complete map coverage. Next was obtaining topographical data with particular emphasis on rivers, tides, bridging sites, ferries, rail, and water communication. There was little known about the ports. Fortunately, Major General Jacob located a friend in the shipping business who had earlier worked in Chittagong and Mongla Chalna and got him to brief the Director of Naval Intelligence on ports and anchorages. The monsoon was about to commence in the east. The Indian Army had therefore very little time to get logistics in place. Starting with infrastructure, existing roads were improved and new ones constructed. The capacity of railroads were increased and landing grounds were constructed. Signal centers and communications were established. 20,000 tons of supplies were moved into the north to Tura in the Garo Hills of Meghalaya to provide support for the final thrust to Dhaka. The plans were sent to various army formations to study and war games began. Bridges were collected from the various depots, repaired and made serviceable. When operations were concluded, every single foot of bridging had been laid. The Indians were aware that they would be fighting the war both on the Western Front and the Eastern Front, while also safeguarding their borders with China. Thus, by the beginning of hostilities, India had fortified its positions in Guwahati and West Bengal and strengthened reserves in border areas with Bhutan and Nepal. The main Indian objective on the Western Front was to prevent Pakistan from entering Indian soil. There was no Indian intention of conducting any major offensive into West Pakistan.